Welcome everyone to the show, Combustible Elements, real talk for real people. Here we try to put different ideas and perspectives together in a pot, heat it up, and get an explosion of knowledge and understanding. We understand that problems can only be fixed starting from the bottom to the top, building a great foundation for change and improvement. I'm Big Mel, and I'm joined by Ruben, aka the Monarch, and Aaron, the Hitman. Let's get started. Our topic for today is masculinity in certain aspects in our society. It's a major thing. It leads to major decisions across multiple platforms. So we're going to talk about that. Somebody sent us a DM. They DM'd us and asked questions about it. So I'm assuming that that person didn't leave a name. They were anonymous. So I'm assuming that they are having problems with finding their own identity as far as it's involved in masculinity in our society. So for this topic, let's talk to our version of the expert when it comes to people dealing with personal feelings on things. Aaron, please
Okay,
lead us off.
so in a general aspect or a general statement of masculinity, I think we have in our society we have a different, well, misunderstanding of what masculinity is. Like a lot of people feel like masculinity is like the arrogant, cocky kind of guy, and that's what masculinity. That's what a masculine man is. And for me, I don't agree with that at all. Masculinity is somebody being comfortable with who they are, knowing um, what their role is in society, knowing what their role is in the household, in a relationship, and being comfortable um, being a leader. And for me, that's what a masculine man is in our society today.
So, Ruben, how do you feel about it?
So, so for me, I feel like masculinity is basically, how men should compose themselves. You know, there's there's different levels, I guess, of masculinity. You can be a young man, an adolescent, or a full adult male. So you grow, in my opinion, into your masculinity as a man. Um, some people may not feel that way, or they might see it as toxic or whatever if you behave some of those in certain ways that may be condoned as you know too manly or whatever, or not manly, or not manly enough, or whatever the case is. Um, I have boys and girls. I I don't push any one particular type of sentiment towards them, but I think naturally, like, my boys behave like young men should, and my girls behave like young women should. So I know we live in a society today where, like, speaking about even a topic like this, it can be somewhat of a hair raiser or whatever. And people saying, "Oh, nah, listen, you know, gender fluid and this and that and so forth and so on." This isn't anything against anybody who feels that way, but I like the separation of church and state. You know what I mean? Like, there are certain things that are appropriate for young men or young boys to do. There are certain things that are inappropriate for young men and young boys to do as young men and young boys. And masculinity, I feel like, puts the line there to give you a gauge. It doesn't necessarily mean that's what you have to do, but it's okay to have that line to figure out, where when you strain too far away based on what your behavior or how you're acting or whatever.
Interesting. Okay, so I'm more so conservative when it comes to masculinity, and I have defined rules that I think should be in as a parent, in society, in relationships. It is a factor in a lot of my decisions, which is a factor in a lot of people's decisions because I mean, this goes along with your version of what's good and what's evil, what's right or what's wrong, how you feel about this will, like I said earlier, go across multiple platforms. Um, I still sit in the middle about a lot of things. So we're going to try to clear that up while we're talking. But from your responses, guys, I have questions for both of you. And I am going to start with Aaron. Um, Aaron, you said, in your opinion, your masculinity or masculinity in a man makes him the leader of his household. Well, we have seen in relationships in society now, just male female relationships. We're not going to talk about other kind of relationships because we're not privy to that. We don't understand that. But just male and female relationships. Why does it have to be the man who's taking that masculine role? When I say masculine role, I mean that dominant role that's making decisions in the household. Like in the new world order in 2020 and in previous years, a lot of those dominant decisions are made by the woman. So she takes that dominant role. So does that mean like she's at a loss for estrogen, has other chemicals, testosterone running crazy, or is it just like whoever takes that dominant role is chosen to do that in the terms of that relationship between the two? So how do you feel about that, Aaron?
Okay, so as far as estrogen and testosterone, it doesn't have anything to really do with the chemical aspect of it. It's all mental. So women have been pushed into a masculine role through society. Mainly single parent homes, single mother homes have been pushed into a role where they had to be the leader of the household, where they had to make the decisions. Women are natural receivers and men are actual or natural providers. So that is natural for a man to be a provider, to provide for his family, to provide for his wife, to provide for his girlfriend. And it is natural for a woman to receive. It's a feminine trait to receive. But the roles have been flipped, and men have become receivers, and women have been pushed into the provider role. And for too long, men have been too comfortable receiving. It's nothing wrong with receiving like gifts and things like that, but to um, step down out of the role of a masculine of a leader, to step down in that role and let the woman lead. And it's not even on the biblical term or anything like that, but to step down, it emasculates men psychologically, whether they know it or not. And that's what leads sometimes into cheating, because you feel emasculated if your woman is the provider, if your woman um, is running the household, is the leader of the relationship. And it emasculates men, which leads them to go into relationships with other women that they are the leader in that relationship.
Okay, well, I'm gonna put the brakes on you for a second. I was gonna go straight to Ruben and ask a question. Rube, keep that mind flowing. I'll get to you in a second. Aaron, um, I have some points to make. One of the points you said was it makes certain men, and I'm assuming you mean certain men and not the composition of all men, feel as though feel a certain way because the woman is dominant in a relationship, but opposites attract too. Sometimes men look for that dominant woman because they feel like they lacking in that. What about the men that are shy? What about the men that are not assertive? Like they'll look for a woman that'll be like, yo, she can handle all that. She can handle them bills. She can handle that family. She makes sure stuff that she makes the right decision. Because I listen to a lot of men that say that. You know what I mean? They'll be like, yo, I'd be nowhere without my woman running everything because I just don't have it in me. You know what I'm saying? And now when you say that it leads to a problem, I see certain relationships they work because people have defined roles. So if you have a defined role and this is what you do and you agree to that and it works for your relationship, I don't see why it's going to be a negative later on. Like you're going to feel like you're not the leader. Now there could be situations where you don't feel like you're a leader, but that's because it's a conflict there. Like it's two alphas running into each other. That's something different other than one's an alpha, one's a beta, and this alpha just happens to be a woman.
So
And that's
you
just my point on that.
so you give me I know you might not know a lot of situations, but give me a situation where a male took a beta role to an alpha woman and didn't cheat on her, where a man was comfortable with being led by a woman and
I'll give you a
didn't cheat on
situation. It hit the brakes. I'll give you a situation.
her. Okay.
And then we'll go to Ruben with my question. And we'll let you think about it. And then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
I'm not going to say any names. I have maybe about 4 or 5 friends, but I'm not going to say names. I'm going to say something about an older one. Um, if he happens to listen, remember I didn't say your name. Leave it to you. But when he started working at my job, he would tell you that his wife makes all the decisions. He doesn't have to work because his wife made the decisions to buy properties and allocated money for that. He doesn't have to worry about his retirement because his wife handled all that from start to finish. So he'll tell you all he needs to do is work a certain amount of hours so he can put what she deems as necessary. And what she deems as necessary is really like a small percentage of what he makes. So he can retire anytime. And he'll tell you straight to your face, he wouldn't have been able to do that on his own. He couldn't even balance his own weekly budget, let alone a monthly or yearly budget. So he's in a great place after 30 years because of his situation with his wife, and he's content with his wife. Like he's not sitting down there saying, "Oh well, I don't go anywhere because his wife schedules trips and sends him to exotic places or whatever." But she plans the trips, but she pays attention to what he wants to do. You know what I mean? So their relationship worked like that for like 30 years. So that's the example of a person that was like satisfied in his relationship. You know what I'm saying? And he was satisfied financially. He was satisfied in other ways, but he takes a back seat. He acknowledges he takes a back seat, but he also acknowledges that the decisions that she made, he wouldn't have made. So we'll see what your answer to that is in a second. I want to bring Rube back in here because I had a question for Ruben, and I don't want to get too far off point with my question for Ruben. So, Ruben, you said that
Right.
there's levels to masculinity for a man growing up. I agree with you. An adolescent man is not the same as an older man or a senior or a baby, a pre-adolescent, preteen, because we all have stages and we all learn what we deem is important from a masculinity point of view, whether it's from our fathers or other men around us. It doesn't have to be those people that are around us that's supposed to be the ones that are the leaders. Sometimes we follow other people what we figure in society is like masculine, a tough guy, a leader, and that can lead you into a bunch of problems. So I want you to talk on that, but I want to know when you consider masculinity and you saying your daughters are raised a certain way, your boys are raised a certain way, is that going to play a part in whether you are happy with who your daughters choose when they become like old enough to choose their mate? Like, is if their mate is soft in your opinion? Because we're older guys, we say all the time, these boys are soft now. That's why they shoot each other. They scared to fight with their hands. So, is that going to be a consideration when you look at the person that she chooses, or either one of them choose later on when they get older?
So my
So
kids are
how
so young. I'm not thinking that far ahead yet. Like I got
you better start, bro.
listen. My daughter. My daughters are 8 and 4. I don't want to think that far ahead yet.
You
You know,
better start. I'm telling you.
right now, I mean, the reality of it is, I hope that I do a good enough job that when she does decide to make a decision, or when they do decide to make a decision, because I have 2 daughters, when they make the decision to choose who they're gonna choose.
All right, Ruben, we losing you.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, so when they make the decision to choose who they're gonna be with, I just hope that they make that decision based on the upbringing that they had. They find somebody that understands. They find somebody that's caring. They find somebody that truly understand what it is to take care of a woman. And part of that is being able to find a mate that comes from a family who understand the proper stages and the proper levels of masculinity. Meaning, it's not as simple as opening doors and closing doors and all the a lot of the things that you hear about growing up, where where people expect men to be chivalrous and things like that. Yes, those are important, but coming from a background where you're not suffering from any type of like mental illness, and this kind of goes back to some of the stuff we were talking about before, as far as like PTSD and everything, because a lot of the stressors that we go through in life, from adolescence to adulthood, dictate the type of masculinity you're gonna have, or the type of level of masculinity you're gonna possess, as you become a man, as you grow into adulthood. So for my daughters, picking the right mate means picking, somebody that went through those levels at a decent, in a way that didn't, how do I say, it's like you got to grow, and you got to evolve in steps. If you skip a step or you skip a stage, then it affects you as you get older, whether you realize or recognize it or not. So as long as they find someone that grew up accordingly and that grew up in the proper and the, I'm not creating. I'm not saying what the stages are necessarily, because it's not. It can be different based on your upbringing, but skipping stages, like any form of evolution, you're gonna find defects and disenfranchisement as you get older. So hopefully they find people that grew up and went through the proper stages, went through the proper emotional level of, growing up, I should say. And then I'll be happy with that. I'll be happy with that outcome.
Okay, so I'm gonna pose a question to you, and then we're probably gonna jump off this topic and talk about something a little bit more serious that involves this topic. So what if one of your daughters, they're successful, they went to school, or they didn't go to school, they started their own business, they built their own brand, they got multiple outlets, they successful, they perfect, you know what I mean? Like, you raised them, they view society, they give back, and then they come home and say, Dad, this is my new man. And then you ask the man, hey, what do you do? Nothing. And now you pull your daughter to the side and say, dude, don't do nothing. Why are you with him? And your daughter looks you in the eyes, and her exact words is, Dad, I don't want to hear that bullshit from a man that actually has something telling me what I need to do. I want a man that's going to just sit down, play PlayStation or Xbox, just shut up and do what I say, and that's how my relationship is going to be. And you're cool with
it. I'm gonna be honest. I can see my oldest daughter doing something like that. I can see my oldest doing something like that, because she's a boss now. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Like, she's very strong-willed. She's very strong-minded. She's direct. She's about her business. You know what I mean? So I can see it. I'm not gonna say I can see her picking somebody that's not doing anything, but her relationships may have trouble if the male doesn't properly understand his role, as a male, which goes back to what I was saying, the different levels of masculinity. Like, if whoever she ends up dating isn't truly confident, because some people pretend to be confident, You know what I mean? Some people pretend to have it all together emotionally. Like some people pretend. It's a lot of pretending that goes on in society. So the different levels, when I mention them, you know, you gotta be self-aware. You gotta be confident. You gotta be happy within yourself. Like if you don't have some of those qualities as a male or a female, but right now we're speaking from a male point of view, it's gonna be very hard for you to make someone else happy if you yourself are not happy. So if whoever she ends up dating doesn't have those qualities and characteristics, then there is always going to be friction because she knows what she wants, you know,
Okay.
at 8 years old. So I can only imagine how much further along it's going to go as she gets older. But now at 8, she knows what she wants. She knows what she's looking for. She's already talking about businesses and things of that nature. So definitely, whoever she ends up dating in the future, they're gonna have to be sure of themselves. They're gonna have to be confident. They're gonna already have to have a lot of the characteristics that I'm helping her and nurturing her and building in her, so they could be of equal yoke.
So meaning she ain't gonna get nobody like you. That's done. So you too masculine for that to take the fallback role. So you said something. We're gonna go to Aaron, um, and then this is how we're gonna kind of like finish the show off before we go to the next little phase of our show. Who's to blame? Um, you mentioned people only show you their best face. Nobody really shows you, whether it's in a relationship or society, their defects because they don't want people to know their defects. So they hide it, they shield it. They instinctively know to hide their defects because if they don't see your best face, they may not go any further. So that's a portion of what I'm saying, but not really in relationship. In Philly, we have over 400 and something murders. A lot of those murders could have been avoided. A lot of those murders happen because people, they feel like men, their masculinity is threatened. Like they don't walk away. Now I know in certain situations you can't walk away because this person won't let you walk away, or you want to be aware of what's going on. But some of these situations you need to just turn your back and then walk away, and because they feel like they're going to be a punk or a little bitch, or society will come at them a certain way because of this is how the streets and this is how it goes. What do you have to say about that topic? Just your feelings, not personal, whatever, but just whatever your feelings are on that without getting personal or this happened here or this or that because we're short on time. What are your feelings towards that? We'll start with Aaron because we had you quiet for a while. We'll
Okay.
take 2 minutes and then we'll go into, or actually, this is the section where we go, who's to blame? So we'll go into that section and we want to know who's to blame in those situations. Like, how do you feel about those situations? Not really who's to blame, but how do you feel about those situations? Go ahead, Aaron.
Okay. I mean, it's hard not to bring in personal experiences, but I feel like that a lot of guys that are out in the streets are betas. They're not alphas. And they feel that their masculinity is being attacked by other betas who they feel like are alphas because they feel like because you're loud and aggressive, that makes you alpha. Is not. It actually makes you a beta. So like when alphas come around, like if an alpha walks in a room, then betas automatically feel attacked, no matter if you're saying anything or not. Like they feel inferior to an alpha. And that's what a lot of people on the streets are. They're betas, so they feel threatened. Their masculinity feels threatened. So it leads to killings and things like that. You wouldn't see like an actual alpha male out in the streets running with guns, shooting people up. That's just not how alpha masculinity males move. That's the way betas move. And because betas masculinity is threatened, they have to pump their chests out and pump bullets into other people to make them feel more masculine, to make other people feel inferior to them. So that's just my take on it, about masculine energy in the streets when it comes to in the streets, between the alpha and the beta male.
Okay, Ruben.
So who's to blame?
We're not really into who's to blame on that topic. This is the portion of it, but just on that topic, just go into the topic. Because a lot of times everybody's to blame.
I mean, I like to blame society, man. I mean, granted, everyone's responsible for their own actions, but me and Aaron were talking earlier, and I like to look at things. I got the opportunity. I get the opportunity to look at things from a different point of view because I'm not from here, and so I'm always looking at things from an outsider's view. Even though I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else, I always feel and I always believe myself to be an outsider because my upbringing, though short it may have been in a different country, still gave me a viewpoint that most people don't get to have. You know, it still gave me a different understanding of what's really important in life a lot of times and what really matters and what really, you know, how the simplest things can truly change your life in the blink of an eye. So, you know, if you grow up in an environment and you don't see anything positive and you don't see anything, you know, that's inspiring, or whatever you see that's inspiring, it may not necessarily be a positive influence, chances are you're gonna gravitate to that. Like that's you do what you see. You know, you do by nature. Like if you was to raise someone, you know, in a good environment or you know, quote unquote good environment or whatever, but like chances, you know, they have a better chance of doing better in life as opposed to somebody that, you know, that's just growing up in survival mode. You know, when you're in survival mode, you're doing whatever you have to do to survive. You're doing whatever the thought of thriving and the thought of living past tomorrow is not even something that really crosses your mind, because all you're thinking about is living for today and today only. How are you going to eat today? What are you going to do today? You're not thinking, you know, 2-3 weeks ahead. You're not even thinking 2 days ahead, you know, because that's just not how you wire. That's not, you know, you may not live to see 2 days from now, you know, so it's really easy to talk about how, you know, people don't want to fight, or people don't want to do certain things, like things were in good old days. But as an avid, you know, I love history, and throughout history, I can honestly tell you that like nothing has really changed from the civilization to civilization. Like the same way people are killing each other a lot in our era, past eras have done the exact same thing. They were actually worse. We've actually gotten better in some of those instances in our society because, you know, in past civilizations, like people will get killed and nobody would even blink an eye. Like,
And I agree with you totally on that. I'm going to jump in, try to make a quick point because we up against the wall time wise. You're right. Murders, it's not even close. When I hear people sit down there and say the world is going to hell, they have no idea about history. Like villages was wiped out on masculinity. They had to go. We want their shit. Bottom line. Guns make masculinity more of a factor in their decisions because you can shoot somebody and it's the ultimate equalizer, as opposed to if you fall them with your hands or you stab them. It was a possibility you might have died because it was up close and personal. So far away has replaced the guns, give people a sense of I'm tougher than what I am. Like I said, we're up against time. We're going to delve into this topic a little bit more. The person that sent a letter that didn't leave a name, hopefully we helped you. Hopefully we covered the topic you were considering. Guys, I want to thank you guys for coming. I'm Big Mel, Ruben, the Monarch, Aaron, the Hitman. Thank you for joining us on Combustible Elements. I look forward to joining you again, and we look forward to talking to you. Peace out, people.
peace.